Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In case you didn't know, this week is book fair week. We are actually on the last day. This is going to be the last video. Allie has the flu right now, so I'm going to be reading the first chapter of Freestyle. It's the 5th book in the Pro U series, and that's the series that we chose for this month. If you have any specific series that you want to hear us read chapter 1 of, like each episode, sorry, I thought I heard something. Each book, then comment it down below and we might select the series that you would like for next month's book week. But anyway, today is Freestyle, the last book in the Pro U series, so let's kick it off. This is Clara's chapter. Swimming made me feel free and alive when I was a little girl dreaming of being a mermaid. It had given me a purpose during high school when I needed something to keep me grounded and focused on my future. Now, the water was my cocoon, my sanctuary, and when I dove in, I always had hope that I'd resurface cleansed with all of my shame washed away like a baptism. The water would make me anew, and I could move on with my life and put the past behind me like it never happened. But as soon as my feet were on the solid tile, standing in a puddle of hope that had long been washed away, the raw, gripping reality of what had been done to me would slap me in the chest so hard I'd lose my breath. Great work today, Clara. Your average time is the best in the class. Way to swim. Coach Jones's voice was encouraging, but the slap on my back had me cringing. It was no fault of his own. He meant well, and in many ways reminded me of my own father, who had encouraged me through the years before I had a coach. I knew he really cared about me, but I couldn't handle contact, not from anyone. Even if I was a nervous wreck and living life like a complete basket case, at least my love of swimming hadn't been taken from me. There were many days when I felt that it was all I had left. The normalcy of it would last only so long, and then I was back looking over my shoulder and keeping my head down. Thanks, Coach. I've been trying. I pushed and pushed, doing laps every night I could along with sprints to push my time. It shows. You've improved a lot over the last few weeks. You know, you should go out and celebrate. Best to get that out of your system early with the match coming next weekend. He gave me a wink and hugged his clipboard. Thanks. I might do that. See you later. I gave him a wave goodbye and then headed back to the showers, hoping that I could get the task done before anyone came in. I liked my privacy as much as anyone else, and I wasted no time rinsing off. Once I was done, I quickly dressed, brushing my hair back to let it dry straight so I didn't need Amir's assistant, and headed out. I stopped at the door to dig my keys from my bag and then went down the long hall to the exit. I opened the door and glanced around, making sure there wasn't anyone out of place or looking to mug me. When I was finally comfortable enough, I continued and stepped around the corner to where my car was parked. My heart leaped into my throat as Dylan Coleman bumped right into me, nearly knocking me down to the sidewalk. I prepared myself for an attack, causing him to take a step back. I'm so sorry, Clara. He put his hand up as if to defend himself and looked at mine, which was pulled back, the keys fisted between my fingers to cause the optimal damage to any attacker. It was something I'd learned to do from the internet, and I was prepared to strike for anyone's eyes. I learned my lesson about trusting others, and now I trusted no one. Yikes, I wouldn't want to be the one receiving the end of that fist. I dropped my hand and tried to calm my nerves with a few deep breaths. You scared me. Why don't you watch where you're going? I looked up into his big brown eyes and wondered how anyone could be scared of Dylan with those sexy eyes, but I knew the prettiest of men could be devils or inconsiderate assholes like Dylan had proven to be. I lowered my chin and stepped around him. I was looking down at my phone for a second. Guess I shouldn't text and walk. He laughed at his little joke and called out to me. Hey, wait! I heard him fall in behind me and my back stiffened. I glanced over my shoulder, wishing he'd just go away so I could go home and study. I had a ton of work to do thanks to him. What do you want? As if he hadn't done enough damage and proven he wasn't someone who could be counted on. Dang, girl, you have a temper, don't you? I just wanted to say I might need tutoring if you're available. Who knows, it might be fun. We weren't that terrible of a team, right? He gave me a chuckle that told me just how serious he was, and I wasn't in the mood to make jokes. I partnered with him in English, and then he'd pull a stunt that failed us both. I huffed as he came around, giving me his big, dopey grin. Fat chance. I helped you last semester, and you dropped the ball. Now I have to work extra hard to get my grades back up on top of everything else I have going on in my life. He took a step back, and his mouth popped open as if he were in shock by my words. That's a real naughty mouth you got there. He leaned in close, and I went to step back, not knowing the building was still so close. I was trapped. My heart started to race, and I couldn't tell what was worse. That it raced not because I was terrified of the tall, handsome guy in front of me, but that I wanted him to kiss me. I stiffened, clutching my bag, bracing for anything. The truth was, if he kissed me, I'd probably melt into him. I know I would, and the reaction would make me weak. I wasn't weak. I'd never be weak, naive little freshman who let herself be taken advantage of again. He took notice of my reaction, his eyes trailing down to my hands, which not only still had the keys fisted tight, but the strap of my bag as well. It's not nice to call people names. Didn't anyone ever tell you that? His bemused grin made me want to slap his face. He brought up way too many feelings in me to focus on anything else in his presence, and he wasn't worth the trouble. I lifted my chin to look down my nose. It's also not nice to corner people or to drop their grade point average because you have better things to do. I had never gotten an excuse for him about where he was when he failed to show up the day of our project. I was sure it was some kind of Omega House stuff, which was why I knew better than to let my attraction for him cause me to stumble. I had to focus. I had to keep my guard up at all times if I was going to make it, and I'd let this charm be a stumbling block once already. Never again. He raked his hand through his hair and he looked at me with narrowed eyes. Hey, I said I was sorry. How long are you going to hold a grudge, little Miss Perfect? Excuse me? I wasn't the one going around throwing myself at people and drinking like every day was a party like some of the students. I had kept to myself and didn't bother anybody, but somehow I was always sneered at or looked down on. All I wanted was to be left alone. You heard me, Ice Princess. I guess it's okay for you to call people jerks, but you think you're too good for a little teasing? You know, despite me not showing up and messing things up last semester, I thought we were really getting along. Me too, and then you brushed off our project like it was nothing. I didn't even mind, and I'd done most of the work, but sadly, Professor Myers didn't give a crap. He failed us both. All of that hard work was down the drain, and you didn't even care. Anything else? He folded his arms and gave me a hard stare. Yeah, I want to know what was so important that you forgot to show up for class on the most important day of your junior year. I looked him in the eyes, leaning forward as if I were towering above him, but he didn't back down either. A friend needed me. He shrugged it off like it was no big deal. Friend? Ha! Is that what you call your women? I rolled my eyes. He was just like the other Omegas. They were all the same. Jealous? He raised his brow and smirked as if trying to lighten the tension a bit. You wish. His brow wagged a little at my response, and then he lifted his chin and shrugged. No, my friend Will. He needed me and I was there for him, but you wouldn't understand friends, right? I hear you've run off from everyone, but a few you've chosen worthy. And you still don't get it. I thought I was your friend too. I needed you, and you weren't there. You didn't even call or try to ask the professor for an extension. I guess I'm not the only one who chooses who they deem worthy. I pushed past him and headed for my car, which was just a few steps away, and he stared me down until I left the parking lot. My last view of him in my rear view mirror was him shaking his head and turning to walk inside. I had enough of people like him to last a lifetime. I was a survivor and I had dreams. I also knew that if I wanted those dreams to be a reality, I was going to have to focus and work hard. I'd come to college wanting to have the big college experience, but all that had been proven too dangerous, and I'd gotten a big, ugly taste of what it was all about. It wasn't the life for me, or at least the lifestyle, so while the others were out partying and getting drunk and out of control, I kept to myself. It was a lonely life, but it was the only life. I tried hard to be social to a few of the girls, but even they weren't safe. Dang, this is kind of sad. I pulled up to my apartment and found someone was in my parking space yet again, and I only hoped it wasn't one of my sister's friends, and especially not the guy she brought home to hole up in bed with. I'd been gawking at Seth Mills, but wished that when she did find someone, he would be better than the meathead whose only interest was sex and rebounding after his ex, Layla Roberts, finally hooked up with Jace Moore. She was much better off with Jace and seemed happy enough. I wasn't the best of friends with Layla or anything, but she was one of the only girls, aside from Natasha Kelly, that I could somewhat give the title to. I pulled into another spot that was reserved for guests, which meant I had to walk a little further. I went ahead and got my keys in place and took a breath as I stepped out of the car and hustled upstairs. Having a downstairs apartment was no such luck, but I knew I shouldn't complain since my parents, mostly my father, had been good enough to find my sister Avery and I a place close to campus on their dime. At least it was a 2-bedroom, which was better than what I had at home. Avery and I shared a room since we were kids, and it wasn't because we didn't have another room, but because we decided when we were 12 that we'd have one room for sleeping and one for hanging out with friends. Our house was the neighborhood hangout all through middle school and high school, but things had changed drastically when we moved away from there. Mom and Dad had given us rules to follow, and though we were allowed to have friends over, it couldn't be party central. That was one of the only things they'd agreed on since their divorce. That was fine with me. It wasn't like I'd brought my friends to college with me, not that we were a wild bunch anyway, and I'd had a hard time making friends. My sister said I'd changed, and I guess in a manner of speaking I had, though not in the way she thought, which was turning into a nerd only liked to study. I wanted good grades, sure, but that's why I worked so hard. But most of my issues weren't because I thought I was too good at friends. The truth was, nothing had been the same with me, not since my freshman year, not since that night. I'd gone to the Omega house with my new friends, and everything changed with one drink. So that's chapter 1 of Freestyle. Obviously, there's a very deep-rooted story behind this chapter, and you're going to have to read the rest of the book to figure out what it is. Also, you'll find that in the books connect. So like Jace and Layla, they're a different book. They're one of the past books. So read all of them so that you get to know all of their stories. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for watching Book Fair Week. If you haven't seen the other videos, make sure you check them out. They're on the channel. And again, leave any series that you would like to hear down below, and I'll be sure to take that into account whenever we look at April's Book Fair Week. Please subscribe if you like the video. Have a great day, guys.